Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be, I've never been happier. I've got an email from a guy here. He's got a really great success story to share. He found my work about a year ago after his 8-year relationship. And one of the things that really was shocking to him is how quickly his ex moved on, and he's still devastated. She's moved on to another guy like nothing ever happened. After 8 years with somebody, it's like, how do you recover? What do you do when you're with somebody for 8 years? And so he shares the process that he went through. He shares some of his experiences dating. And he shares about the new woman that he's in a relationship. I guess he's been dating about 8 months, and he's happier than he's ever been. And so if you're like most people who come to my work because a relationship ended, this is where you can be in a year. I mean, this guy, I'm not a quick fix. I'm not the type of thing where you read the book and like, boom, everything changes overnight. It just doesn't work that way. It takes time and repetition, and depending on where you're at, maybe you got to work on your career first. Maybe you got to work on your business first. Maybe you got to figure out what your purpose is and what you're meant to be doing. Maybe you got to get your ass back in the gym and start working out and taking care of yourself, taking care of your body. Maybe you just need to overcome your fear of approaching women and start practicing your pickup skills. Or maybe your pickup skills are great, but you get 2 or 3 dates, or you might sleep with a girl a couple times and then she never returns your calls after that. Or maybe you're great at pickup and you're great at dating, but when it gets in the relationship phase, after a couple of 2 to 3 months, things always seem to fizzle out, and she gives you the let's just be friends speech, and you don't know what the fuck it is. It takes time to work on yourself and become a better version of you. The idea is to get yourself to a place where you're able to attract the kind of lovers that you want, whether you're looking to be married the rest of your life, or you want to be a player the rest of your life, or every 2 to 3 years you want to have a new live-in lover, whatever it happens to be, or you want to have 2 or 3 girlfriends. It's different for every person. What every guy or every girl is looking for is a little bit different. There's no, like, a society puts such a big emphasis on everybody fitting in this one little box. You got to be married, and it's like a badge of honor. Oh, I've been in my relationship for 20 years. Like, yeah, when's the last time you had sex? Oh, well, why does it always have to be about sex? When's the last time you had sex, dude? Well, we had sex twice last year. It's like, you're not fucking lovers. You don't have a relationship. You're fucking roommates. You're married to your roommate. That to me, it's like a lot of people carry around how long they've been married or how many years they've been together. Like that somehow is justification that they have a successful relationship. But they're not sleeping in the same bed, or they don't even touch each other physically. Why are you together then? Well, why the fuck would you want that? Seriously. So I've got a quote that I wrote on this topic, and then we're going to go through his email. So the quote says, "Success and happiness are a direct result of making progress towards achieving your goals, dreams, and creating the life and lifestyle you've always wanted. However, no one is immune to having to overcome challenges, setbacks, disappointments, and obstacles in order to make their ideal life and lifestyle a reality. Very few people are willing to endure hardship and do the difficult things that are necessary to make their grandest goals and dreams a reality. That is why only about 3% of the world's population makes most of the money, takes most of the risks, has the most desirable lovers, and has the material things that unsuccessful people can only dream about. Everyone has a desire to be awesome and successful, but most people simply are not willing to pay the price and do the required work to make it a reality." I had a guy, I haven't talked to him in a few years, what I was talking about before I read the quote, about sex and relationships. He'd been with his wife for, I think, about 15 years at that point. His wife, like, butched her hair, stopped putting makeup on, started wearing baggy clothes, started putting on weight. They had 2 or 3 kids. I can't remember at this point. He was a guy I used to do business with back when I was in real estate. And we were hanging out having lunch. It was like, I was talking about this girl that was my girlfriend at the time, and we had sex like 5 times, the day before. And he's like, "Dude, I haven't had sex in 4 years." And I was thinking, oh man, I was like, what are you doing? What the fuck? And there's so many people that are like, "Hey, we've been together 20 years. We're staying in for the kids." It's like, really? You want your kids to grow up and go and marry somebody, have a few children, and then never have sex the rest of their lives? That ain't a relationship. That's a friendship. You're fucking roommates. What the fuck? That's like a legal arrangement between roommates. There's no passion. They're always fucking sniping at each other. Fuck that. It's ridiculous. I mean, very few people have been together for multiple decades and are still having sex and they still have a great relationship. They love being together. That's the exception to the rule. I mean, you look at the divorce rate, so it's over 60% now. Most people don't last in their relationships. I mean, this is what I do for a living. It's like I talk to people that I meet and I ask them questions, and it's like, man, it's just brutal. It's like life's a gift. It's so short. You should enjoy it. And if your needs aren't getting met in a relationship, maybe it's run its course and it's time to move on and find something better. I mean, think about it. We do that with our friendships. I mean, most of us don't have the same. I mean, we might have a handful of friends that we've been friends with our whole life. But most of us, when we look back on it, we've literally had hundreds of friends come and go in our lives. People that we used to hang out with all the time. And then maybe we stopped working at that job, or we moved out of that neighborhood, and then just as years go by, those friendships just kind of fade and they fall by the wayside. But a lot of people, they hold on to their relationships, even there's no sex, there's no passion anymore, so they can tell people, they can pound their chests, go, oh, we've been together 30 years. Like, when's the last time you had sex? Oh, about 10 years ago. Like, whoa, that sounds fucking great. Let me sign up for that shit. Fuck. Life's too short. So anyways, enough of my rant about people that stay in unhappy relationships. Hi, Corey. Well, what a mad year I have had since I first encountered your work on YouTube and began reading your book. Over a year and a half ago, I ended a relationship of nearly 8 years. It's fair to say that the period after that really offered some of the most difficult challenges of my adult life. Dude, I can feel for you. I know what it was like after I got my divorce. It was like we were together almost 4 years. It was like, I was young at the time. I mean, I got together with her when I was 24, and it wasn't until I was 27, 28 we split up. That was a big chunk of my life at that point. That was the longest relationship I'd ever had, and I remembered all the failures that I had before that. I mean, I married the first real girlfriend that I ever had. I was terrified that I was never going to find anybody else. I even went back to her after a month because I fucking bitched out. And then when I went back, I realized she was great. She was a beautiful girl. We had a lot of fun together. We remained friends for a lot of years after that. She even dated one of my good high school buddies for about a year and a half, 2 years. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like what turned you off that led to the end of the relationship the first time around, you go back to somebody. That's why most relationships, even when you go back, they don't last long term. It's because they're not going to change. You know, people think, oh, I lost this person, I got to get them back, and we'll be happy for it. And then you get them back, and then 6 months later, they're broken up for good. You know, chances are, if it didn't work the first time around, it's not going to work the second time around, unless you did something really to fuck it up and you correct those mistakes. But if the reason you stopped putting your best foot forward was because you just really weren't that into them anymore, that's one of the things I always point out to guys that are trying to get a girlfriend or a wife back or whatever, that were those is, well, how come 6 months ago when you were still together, you weren't dating her and you weren't going out with her, you weren't even trying to sleep with her? But I'm in love with her. This is the love of my life. I got to get her back. Like, yeah, but I want to point out to the fact that why did you stop putting your best foot forward 6 months ago or a year ago? Because you have to consider that. You can't just ignore it and sweep it under the rug, because eventually you get back together, and eventually you will have to deal with that. He says, how do you suddenly live on your own after all that time with another person? I mean, yeah, because your whole identity becomes associated with that being in that relationship. And breakups are never easy. Even if the relationship was only for a year or two, it still hurts like a motherfucker. He says, what do you do when that person who you fell out of love with seems to find it so easy to move on and meet people, and you can't even seem to meet anyone? The biggest challenge for me during that time was my confidence and a complete lack of belief in the idea that I could ever attract a beautiful woman again. I suspect that she was the one that ended that relationship, because she stayed long past the time that she had any feelings for you. So when she ended, it was over for her. She was done. She was ready to move on. She was excited about moving on. She knew she didn't want to be with you anymore, and she didn't feel anything for you anymore. And when you're in relationships with somebody like that and they break up with you, they're not going to come back, even when you go no contact. No contact is not, the magic pill for everything. If there's still some kind of interest, they will come back. If not, you'll never hear from them again. And if you never hear from them again, then it really doesn't matter. They weren't going to put the effort in that was necessary. He says, luckily, it was around that time that I found your work and slowly began to apply some of the things you teach. I contacted you several times and tried to follow your brilliant advice and ideas around what confidence really is and how you can increase it. Of course, that means just do it and repeat. Well, repetition's the mother of skill. Over those following months, I managed to move from the guy who could barely keep eye contact with the woman he was attracted to the guy who was going on a few dates and beginning to perceive himself as a catch. Some dates were fun and interesting. Some were so awkward and boring, and one was even quite scary and the worst sex ever. That's par for the course. That's what you're going to experience. Some women are going to go out and they're like, oh, she's so hot. And you go out, and then you're an hour later like, oh my God, is it time to go yet? Where's that fucking check? It happens. After that, well, that's when it happened. That's when I met, quite literally, the love of my life. And in those first few days, everything I'd learned from you came into play. This is why I say you got to practice this stuff, because you don't know when this is going to happen. You don't know when, boom, you're going to meet that woman that knocks your fucking socks off. And if you haven't done the work and you haven't gotten prepared and you meet her, you're going to fuck it up. And you're going to be stinging from that rejection for 6 months to a year. He says, it was amazing, beautiful, romantic, and beyond anything I could have ever imagined. Over the last 7 months, we've spent a lot of time together, even though we are currently living in different countries. In a few weeks, I'm actually relocating to her city, where I've managed to develop some interesting opportunities for my career. And I really couldn't be happier. And a large part of this I definitely owe to you, Corey. I know I did the work, and I continue to try and do that work, but you showed me the way, man. So basically, my life has completely changed. I've never been happier, and most importantly, I've never believed that I deserve to be this happy as much as I do now. It's going to be an interesting story, I'm sure, when I arrive there, but I feel equipped for the challenge, and you only live once, so bring it on. All the best to you, and keep up the good work. I've already introduced your work to a few male friends of mine who have had difficulties recently, and we all take the piss out of you for always talking about American sports. Haha, we're English, and we don't get them. All the guys I've shared the work with agree that you talk an awful lot of sense and have found it inspiring, so keep sharing your work. Peace, Corey. All the very best. Well, thanks for that awesome success story, and thanks for sharing your experiences. So here's another guy who was in an 8-year-long relationship, and obviously at some point he realized the relationship was kind of fucked, but he kept hanging in there until eventually his girl dumped him and just moved on like it was nothing. I mean, I talk to guys who have been married to the same person. Sometimes they're widowed. Sometimes they've been together for 40 years or more. And the last 15, 20 years sucked. And they stayed in it the whole time. Not having sex, doing nothing. Watching porn, flirting with other women, but it never going anywhere because they were married. And they had to be respectful, which was great. They honored their commitment, but they made themselves miserable for decades. Most people do that. It's just life's too fucking short to spend it in an unhappy, and an unloving, and a loveless, and a sexless relationship. If you're not having a kick-ass time together and fucking each other's brains out, then what the fuck are you doing it for? Because if you're not doing those things, you're just roommates with a legal arrangement, being married. That's definitely something to think about. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone, Skype, or email coaching session. You can choose any of those options by going to my website, clicking the products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions for booking whichever option works best for you. And I will talk to you soon.